people will scream out scam, scam, scam. You know, it takes a special kind of person to be a support worker. You can't just get in it thinking, hey, I'm going to make money. No. That funding's been cut.
Yeah,
that's okay. Leave that part in there.
We'll leave that part in there. This is what it is.
Leave that in here.
It's unregistered. It's unfiltered.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Jacinta.
And I'm Clayton. Welcome to the Unregistered podcast.
The podcast where we talk about all things NDIS and also discuss the things that usually get left out. So welcome and join us on the journey of unpacking everything, really. Unregistered. I mean, we finally made it. Yeah. We've started our podcast.
That's what happened, yep.
Unregistered, it's a very controversial topic in the NDIS right now, I think. And we kind of wanted to name it Unregistered just so we can kind of bring up the controversial topics, unpack them, talk about things that are currently being monitored and filtered around, social media and just the sector in general as well. There's a lot of stigma behind it. So
Definitely, yeah.
We want to bridge that gap and kind of, open up the conversations and, talk about it a little bit further.
Beautiful.
What do you think, Clay?
Definitely. I love the name. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of name, and I think it does sort of put forth exactly what we want to talk about. We want to have that unfiltered, that unregulated sort of chat about what's going on in the NDIS. There's so much to cover and there's so much to learn about as well. So, we're definitely looking forward to it.
Okay, guys, for this segment, we kind of wanted to bring to light some of the articles that have been filtering around the news lately. One of them is quite distressing for me to even read. Clayton, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about this, but essentially I'll read a little bit about it and we can kind of unpack that. But NDIS participant held hostage by a provider in Melbourne.
Okay, right. Okay. So
already that's red flags.
Yep. The word hostage does trigger some alarm bells for sure.
Definitely. So a disabled man referred to as Shane was allegedly held by his NDIS provider for 16 months against his will.
Wow, okay.
He had a 1 million year NDIS funding package, which pretty much the provider used him as a cash cow. Okay, and it took, this is the kicker right here as well. It took him 16 months worth of legal battles with VCAT hearings and complaints to the NDIS Commission before he was freed.
That's crazy, honestly.
Like
16 months to get out of what I'm assuming is a service agreement.
Honestly,
which
it contradicts everything about the NDIS. Choice and control, right? Mm-hmm. That's wild to me that it took 16 months for a provider to be, I guess, removed, support seized for this poor participant.
The parts about this that I don't understand I suppose I don't understand how it could even happen is, one, how does it take 16 months to get out of, I'm not too sure of the context and the whole story behind it, but how does it take 16 months to get out of what, like I said, is essentially a service agreement? And on top of that, what was the financial burden on Shane, for example, to get out of, obviously we've got 16 months of legal battles, and I can only imagine how much that financially impacted him. We don't know whether TAG was involved, but even if they say TAG was involved, there's money that person's going to have to utilize that could potentially be for them later down in their life into retirement or when they're less capable as they get older. That money's got to come from somewhere. So it's creating a financial impact on either his trustee and guardian funding, I suppose. As well as, if he's not on that, who's paying for that? Is this on Shane?
Exactly. Exactly. We're talking about as well, like the commissions, right? The NDIS commissions, because essentially the process of it is that if there's complaints raised, obviously that will go to the commissions and they get that time to kind of deconstruct it and investigate. My main concern is that if Shane was unhappy with the service, why did it also take so long for the commissions to, address that and remove him. I mean, we're talking about, you know, NDIS and funding being utilized to where it should be, right?
Yeah.
So obviously the statement of, you know, the provider using Shane as a cash cow already gives that initial, you know, flag that his funding wasn't being utilized for the way that Shane wanted it to be utilized, and that it took so long for the commissions to react and do something about it, you know? I find that very common though as well. There's a lot of situations going on within the NDIS, my own experiences in my, you know, where it takes quite some time for not only participants that are in dire straits and they actually need that funding to receive it, and then for participants as well that don't necessarily want NDIS funding and want to get off as well. Like it's I think there's a bit of a gap between it all.
It's sort of a, you know, puts emphasis on a lot of the concerns that you see people sharing in the, like, you know, in the community, on social media, in certain circles, about the ineffectiveness of the NDIS. And you hear a story like this and you go, I can see that perspective. Obviously, you know, us being in the sector, we see the impacts that the NDIS has had on people's lives and the beneficial aspects of the NDIS. But something like this is only going to exacerbate people's concerns that they already have in the NDIS.
Definitely.
The part of this that I am also worried for, from just a personal perspective, like Shane himself, is throughout this 16-month period, was he receiving any actual assistance or care from his NDIS plan?
What were the actual supports going on?
Yeah.
What invoices were being put through during that 16-month process?
100%. I can't imagine this would have been an easy process for Shane or, you know, any other stakeholders that he may have involved in this. The emotional impact it would have had on Shane,
traumatic.
It is
traumatic. Like,
this is only putting very much assuming in this situation, but now that he's out of that, you know, that court case and he's out of the service that was, you know, overutilizing his funding and all that sort of stuff, Shane's now, once again assuming, Shane's now in a position where he hasn't received the correct service for, at the very least, 16 months. There'd be a lot of anxiety and trauma around what has happened to him and distrust with the NDIS. Is Shane now going to access the services that he needs to with the funding that he's probably entitled to in an effective way to build that capacity again?
Definitely.
It's very hard to tell without knowing about Shane, but
that's a great point because with what's happened to him comes trauma, right? Yeah. So how is he going to feel any way comfortable to go and access services from, say, other providers or allied health services without feeling like he's being hard done by? I mean, if I was in Shane's position, I'd feel the same as well. Like,
there'd be a lot of distrust there for sure.
Definitely. That would cause a lot of anxiety. And you know, I guess the main part of it is that he was essentially being used as a cash cow. So
well, that's it. And then I think whoever this provider may be, was very reliant on the fact that this process was so long. Was this provider still utilising funding throughout this process?
And it also says further into this article that his funding for support coordination was cut, which is another massive thing because the support coordinator acts as an advocate, essentially.
That's it,
so during that whole process where he actually needed that
100%.
That support coordination funding, it was cut from him.
Yeah, so support coordination was one of the only providers that Shane was able to lean on and have that advocacy for. That
funding's been cut.
Yeah,
that's okay. Leave that part in there.
We'll leave that part in there. This is what it is.
Leave that in here.
It's unregistered. It's unfiltered.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. The one stakeholder that is advocating and intervening and trying to get this across the board has had their funding cut throughout this process. That is only damaging Shane further.
That's it. It's mental torment, really.
100%.
For anyone that's ever been through legal battles, everyone can agree that you never want to go through something like that again. And that's what I'm saying.
100%.
this is affecting his future with receiving those
Mm-hmm.
services to assist him with his whatever disability he may have, his diagnosis, and that puts a very bad taste in his mouth.
100%. Yeah.
And reading that is, it's quite upsetting.
100%. Yeah.
Shane, if you ever hear this, I am sorry that you went through that experience.
Definitely,
Hopefully your future dealings with the NDIS and all the other honest service providers, change your mind on that, and you realize that there is so much more out there that you can access, people that are passionate, person-centered approach, and wanting to help you achieve your goals. And you should know that if you don't want a certain support, you can cut that. You do not need that. So yeah, that's a little bit of that article, I guess. If anyone kind of has any feedback, or if you know a little bit further about this article or want to share your opinion, please let us know in the comments. We can even address them in the next episode, because I'm sure a lot of people have gone through something similar, or have, experienced, like I said, something to do with a provider holding them hostage, because essentially that's kind of what it would feel like. So please share your opinions and your thoughts with us.
The good news is, as we said at the start, Shane has been freed, I suppose, from this provider, and that's all.
Thank God.
Been cleared up. Yes, definitely.
Shane's been freed, as he should have been a long time ago.
Got safer living arrangements now, a bit more autonomy over his NDIS plan. The choice of control is back. So
safer living arrangements as well.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a positive at the very least.
Yeah, that's the least that he deserves, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Another article that we really want to kind of shine the light on. Devastating, absolutely devastating. A single parent with a son who is part of the NDIS and an 8-year-old daughter. Their funding was cut in a dreadful way. Clay, do you want to kind of read through that a little bit and we can break that down?
So the context behind this story is single mum living on the Gold Coast with a son, Riley, and a daughter, Willow. Riley receives support from the NDIS, receives funding, and as most people who are living with the diagnosis that Riley has, as time goes on, needs change and behaviours increase, and there's more intervention needed over time. So over the 4 years that Riley was on the NDIS, his funding was actually cut by about 50%. Which does hit home a little bit for me, because I've worked with families previously who have had, well, not necessarily families, but participants who have had their funding cut.
Well, they come from families as well.
And a lot of them have families around their stakeholders, definitely. And you're right, those informal stakeholders. So like family, they're the ones that are with participants every day, and they're the ones that are most affected, other than the participant themselves, obviously. And
I want to shine the light on the fact that the sister, Willow, 8 years old, right? Straight away already a single mother. She has a job to attend.
Yep.
She has a routine to follow, things that she needs to do for herself and her children. 8-year-old Willow took it upon herself, which is, it's actually so emotional, but she took it upon herself to help her brother. She's essentially raised her brother. As Clayton mentioned, ASD level 3 nonverbal behaviors, things like that. She helps her brother go to sleep, helps with meltdowns. She's learnt his behaviors. She's learnt how to handle those behaviors to help mum out, right? So they've cut the funding from this family. I'm going to say family because it affects the whole family.
100%.
They've cut the funding, which has then caused them to not have supports in the mornings and in the afternoons or the evenings. Right then and there, AM and PM supports are crucial, especially for families. Mum has a job to go to. If Riley's having a meltdown in the morning, who's going to help him, regulate? Okay. Willow's got to get ready for school. How is that fair? Nighttime as well. Dinner routine, nighttime routine. All these times can also be triggering for people with ASD level 3, things like that. Showering, dinner, getting ready for bed. This affects Willow's life as well. And that's the whole point why the NDIS is around. We are essentially here to help those families carry on with their daily lives so that the participant can also live their life without affecting parents, sisters, siblings, cousins, whatever.
Yep.
going on about their days as well. We're there for that support.
Well, that's it. The whole idea behind support work, as you know, is to provide that extra assistance where there may be a gap left due to someone's diagnosis, their level of capacity, and those sorts of things. And you're right. For most families, the mornings, going to work, going to school, waking up, doing that whole routine, and then arriving home, they're the times where there's so much going on. And you would know better than I would how overstimulating that can be for a participant who's got a similar diagnosis to Riley, ASD level 3. That's being at baseline is such an important thing for a kid of that age. Being able to regulate and have those supports around them to assist with that. And if that's not there, that's putting so much pressure on mum. That's putting so much pressure on
Riley,
on Willow, and Riley too.
Yeah, and
100%.
Willow as well. Willow,
and an 8-year-old girl looking after anyone is
but the thing
criminal
is,
almost.
That's her older brother as well.
That's it. Yeah.
What's going to happen when Riley becomes bigger and stronger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with the NDIS, and especially I can speak on our Dream Makers' behalf because that's where we come from. That's where we work.
Yep.
We align the participants with suitable support workers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can't tell me that a poor little 8-year-old girl with her older brother, ASD level 3, nonverbal, is a suitable match to monitor his behaviors, help regulate him. He could have aggressive behaviors. We don't know that, obviously, but that could be a thing. And the whole point of having that support and that funding is to be able to align that participant with a support worker that is suited for their needs. Okay, so that's the imbalance there. Is I don't know, like deep down, how much evidence was accumulated for Riley. I don't know if he had the right advocates in place to help him with that funding, but we do know as well that NDIS have become a lot more cutthroat, and pretty much evidence is not enough these days. That's what I feel. I feel like.
What we don't know about this situation is how Riley's NDIS plan was managed. Was it self-managed potentially? Is there a lack of resources or education out there for someone like Riley's mother to be able to manage a plan effectively? Was there a coordinator involved? Was that coordinator doing their job effectively? They may have been doing their job effectively, but we weren't able to collate the right reports to maintain or increase funding. Riley being so young, maybe there were particular services that weren't in place that probably could have helped, whether that be behavioural or whether that be OT. An OT report we know goes a long way when we're looking at plan reviews. So there's so much context that we don't know. Regardless of that, though, a 50% cut in funding for a young boy whose needs are only growing, it is very sad. And I do feel like I feel for mum, I feel for Riley, but I really, really feel for the 8-year-old sister.
Willow.
It's, like I said, in the article here, it states since she was a toddler, she had been intervening with Riley. She'd been looking after him, making sure that he was regulated, dealing with those behaviours. Such a smart little young girl, I'd imagine.
So smart.
If honestly, if Willow needs a job in about 10 years' time,
please
then
come to us, Willow.
100%.
We'll sort you out. You can come sit near me. That's very true. She is a very tough little girl, but this is the story for most families around Australia.
Yeah, this is not an isolated incident at all.
It's not isolated. It's not just to one family. This is a general issue that's going on for all families. And, for anyone that's in the NDIS and participants as well, they do have a family surrounding them. Some do, some don't. That's also why we're there. But for the ones that do have a family that are trying to create careers for themselves, things like that, this is where the funding needs to be utilised for the participants that require that hands-on support so that the rest of the family can also carry on with their lives and everyone can live harmoniously and, everyone can kind of get to where they need to be. But it's a very common thing in Australian homes, especially for NDIS participants, my heart goes out to all
Yeah.
those families and all the participants that have been hard done by with their funding and the NDIS. It's a very complex system.
Definitely.
One of which where you need those additional services to really help you understand the layers, because it's not as simple as just receiving funding. There are layers and things about the NDIS that you really need to have explained. I've been in the NDIS for 5 years. I still need explanations on certain things.
And we're learning stuff.
It confuses
every
me too
week.
sometimes.
There's
you know,
changes every other week. There's changes pretty consistently, and we've got to keep updated and know about these things. And look, I understand from if I work for the NDIA, right, and I'm in charge of creating plans and all that good stuff. I think it would be unfair to expect the NDIS to nail it every single time. There's going to be some gaps there. However, I'd say, what would you say, in the last 6 months or so, there's been a lot of stories that we've seen come out about either one, overutilization of funding from services, funding cuts from the NDIS, or plans that we see come through. And this may sound a little bit harsh, but after getting to know a participant and seeing their level of capacity, their NDIS plan almost undermines their level of capacity. And there's almost there's an overfunding there. And I love that this person's got access to the services that they do have access to.
But they're doing what they need to do, which is they don't need it. They don't want it. They want to be able to live an independent life, right? If they're not utilizing that, that's a thumbs up. In some cases,
definitely.
But
it's so situational. It's hard
situational.
To blanket.
But from my experience, there's a lot of participants that are so capable of doing what they need to do in their daily life. And they may need a tiny bit of assistance with, maybe getting driven to work or transportation, things like that.
Definitely.
But all in all, they go on about their lives without that need of that assistance and a wild amount of funding, when we've got people that are in true need of either 24/7 support, active or inactive supports that don't have it.
100%. No, definitely.
Kind of leads us into our next segment that we kind of wanted to talk about, which was AI. And
that's it, definitely.
How, in this kind of space, how would AI be a pro and a con?
Yeah.
And what would that look like for the NDIS on a funding aspect?
Yeah.
How would AI kind of, how would that work within the funding aspect? And
so I can see both pros and cons to this, right? So obviously the pros are the level of efficiency the NDIS can have. We know as service, people who work for a service provider, nothing's happening overnight with the NDIS in regards to getting anything processed, plans, whether it be commission reports that are made. It could be anything. It is unfair for the NDIS to be able to action things immediately because there is a chain of command and there is a process there.
Yeah.
However, introducing AI to automate a lot of the things that people are doing currently, I can see the efficiency being incredibly beneficial, especially from our perspective as a service provider. If we could reach out to the NDIS and have something be, let's say we have a complaint, correct? That complaint's addressed, that complaint's processed, that complaint is, it's gone through the process that it needs to, and the outcomes are achieved that, from that complaint within the reason. Let's say the turnaround was like 2 weeks. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Like we're not chasing things up for months. We're not chasing.
In the perfect world.
This is obviously a perfect world scenario. However, then we have our cons as well.
Yeah.
As the NDIS grows, and this is just my opinion, it's becoming less person-centered.
Definitely.
And
it's
I
not
feel
just
like
your
that's-
opinion. I think, I second that.
Yeah. And I honestly, and
yeah,
if people
I'll
disagree,
double down
I'd
on
love
that
to
for
hear those
sure.
opinions. So I'm so open to hearing other people's opinions, and I'm very placid in my opinion. So if I do see something that comes up and I go, that's not really what I've subscribed to previously, but I can see how that perspective works. I'm so open to adjusting my perspective on certain things, on my opinions on certain things.
Yeah.
However, from our perspective as a service provider, providing support workers to participants, we are so heavily focused on the interpersonal aspect of care.
Correct. Yep.
And the implementation of AI, in theory, is going to remove that.
Well, that's exactly right. And going back to like the funding and things like that, a situation like Riley and Willow and that family, right? If we were to leave funding allocations to an AI, they're not going to understand emotion. They're not going to understand situations. They're not going to understand the broader aspect of that participant's life. They're just going to see diagnosis and what services they already have. And it's kind of going to make an assumption, or not an assumption. We're talking about robots here. They don't have assumptions. It's going to make a decision just based on the black and white. Yeah. And NDIS is never black and white. It's never been black and white. Anything that happens within the NDIS as well, like it's all situational based, circumstantial, things like that. So if we were to have AI that kind of took over that aspect of the NDIS, I think we'd have a disaster, in my opinion, because when you go for a plan review, you're talking to a human, okay?
Yep.
I know recently the NDIS and the plan reviews haven't been as positive for a lot of participants, but at the same time, you are talking to a human. Me personally, I can't stand when I call maybe my bank or call like some sort of service and I'm talking to a robot.
Yeah.
Oh, it boils my blood. Like, how can a robot be in charge of someone's future and their supports and their NDIS funding? Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah. I do think losing that human aspect of creating an NDIS plan is, I don't think it's going to be beneficial long term. I don't think it's going to be beneficial for not only services but the participants as well. It's, we love going into a plan review meeting with a bunch of other stakeholders in an NDIS plan and be able to just explain from the service provider's perspective how services are running, the needs of the participant, the complexities of that participant, the stuff that can't be written in a report essentially. And I feel like that goes a long way, especially when you have a stakeholder team that's all on the same page and we're all on board with the same ideas. That goes a long way to presenting a case to an NDIS planner. And you can tell during those meetings that, planners' eyes open up when you really get into the nitty gritty of what a participant's needs actually are.
Exactly. Like you can't, that's right. You can't automate human complexity.
Yeah,
you just can't.
Yeah.
Like, you can't turn to a robot and say, make a decision based on, you tell AI, or you send through all the reports and things like that. Like I said, it's only going to pick up on the keywords. There's no emotion based behind it, like their decisions. And one human's life is so complex. There's so
100%.
many different aspects to a human's life.
Our lives are complex. We lived 30 years of life.
I guarantee you if I put my life into ChatGPT, it would probably if it could laugh, it would probably laugh, but it probably would have a meltdown. It wouldn't know where to begin, right? So
there's so many layers to everyone's lives. How do you put that into a report and then have have AI determine what this person needs from a funding aspect? It's so hard. But I suppose your opinion on it and your values depend on whether you value efficiency over the person-centered approach.
And that's right. But this is it. This takes us into the next topic. AI in the NDIS can be utilised.
100% it can be, yes.
But for things that, for the last say, requires human intervention, right? So, for instance, there's an app that we know of that's coming into play as well, that you're able to put in, hey, let's call it chat, right? ChatGPT chat, okay? Hey, chat, can you please find me support workers that live next to Concord, right? 5 kilometre radius from Concord. Perfect. That takes away, it will come up with a whole list of support workers that are 5 Ks away from the participant's house in Concord, for then to us get that list, save us time, then scrolling through our whole database and seeing where each support worker lives. And then it gives us a short list. Okay, let's call these 10 people, see if they're available for a support. Easy done.
That could save you 20 minutes of going through
That's right.
a list of workers,
That's right.
bringing people up, and that's how the NDIS can become more efficient.
It saves us more time to be doing what we need to do, which is human interaction.
Yeah.
Talking to people, speaking to the participants,
100%.
showing up for meetings, doing what we need to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what else do you think like AI would?
So like I can see the AI, I can see AI benefiting us. Let's say, you know, the app that we know about that's being developed currently, it's theoretically going to do a lot more than just that. You know, it can create a database where information can be fed into it. You can interact with it as if it is AI, obviously, through voice commands or, you know, over your phone. And you don't have to go through the rigmarole of using platforms or, you know, OneDrive and all that sort of stuff to find documents that are so far deep into a participant's file. If I could, you know, just speak to the app and say, hey, can I get this file for this participant that was, you know, submitted on this date or whatever the case is.
And it pops it up for you.
It pops up right there. I could do that in the middle of a meeting about this participant.
Definitely.
I can do this, you know, whilst I'm on the way to work, I need to, you know, refresh
me on
anything.
A support plan for this person, right?
100%.
But that's actually true, because when you're going for a meeting or a meet and greet, when you're initially meeting a participant, right, the whole point is that we're building that rapport with someone.
Yep.
In the good old days, we'd have a laptop and a screen, and we'd be tap, 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 asking questions, tap, 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 taking away. We're putting pretty much a screen in front of ourselves and the participant that is trying to talk to us about their life, like what they want and like the goals they want to achieve. And there's a screen there. And I know myself, I am crap at multitasking. Like I cannot multitask if my life depended on it. I know I'm a female, right? But I suck at multitasking.
Yep.
So to be able to have AI there, to be able to, I can have that general conversation with the participant, understand their wants, their needs, what supports they want in place, and Claude or, you know, an AI service to be able to sit there and just pick up on everything. And at the end, I have a whole report. Everything's noted down in detail, exactly what that participant wants. Boom. I've made that connection with that participant, and we've, you know, and everything's already written down. I don't need to spend time typing away, clacking on a bloody keyboard.
What would you say to someone though that maybe doesn't have a complex idea of what or how AI can be utilized, right? So people's understanding of AI is, I'm assuming again, but ChatGPT, what's Google's version? Google's is Gemini.
Gemini. Never.
Is that Gemini? Is that Google?
I don't know.
Gemini's definitely one. I don't use it that much, obviously.
I've only ever used ChatGPT. I actually pay for a subscription to it.
So if your understanding of AI is that, and we know within the NDIS, compliance and confidentiality is huge.
Definitely.
How would you approach the conversation of AI in regards to confidentiality and compliance? Because not many people know that you can build an internal AI and have the information within that database be whatever you fed it.
Yeah.
So
I think what they think is that it's like a massive cloud that is kind of
it is for a lot of mainstream AI. It's just
mainstream
a big cloud.
AI is, but there are certain ones, which is the one that we're kind of integrating into our company now, where it's isolated to just us.
It doesn't know the information until we feed the information.
That's correct. And we train
can't
it.
pull information from external sources.
Yep.
So you can sort of build your own database there and keep it with internal, and you aren't in breach of exposing a participant's information.
Yep. Privacy and confidentiality laws, things like that. Essentially, the whole point of the AI as such is so that we can still be efficient in our jobs, in our roles and what we need to do, and still have compliance sorted out and all the little nitty-gritties that doesn't necessarily need human intervention, right? Yeah. So that we can have the time to make those connections with people, do our jobs, you know, and get things done at a more efficient pace, right?
That's it, yeah. Freeing
and everything's
us up,
safe. You know, that's where AI works, I think.
Yeah, when you use AI safely, it can be incredibly beneficial. And like you said, the benefit from that is then that frees up people like service managers or team leaders to be able to do that interpersonal stuff that is in my opinion, essential for someone's care. Like we look after people, you know, we have participants who are 24/7 care.
Yep.
We are so ingrained in their lives and having that interpersonal relationship and having that connection with the person who's overseeing that and managing that is so integral.
And what's the number one thing, right, for us? Communication.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
How is communication going to happen, right, from us?
Yeah.
We need the time to be able to communicate. So that's why I'm saying as well, like AI works hand in hand with us, right? It doesn't do our job, right? We do our job, but it helps with the little nitty-gritty things that we need to scroll on the computer for and we need to type in, right?
Yeah.
That's when it comes into play.
And those things do add up over time. So, you know, it could be, you know, as simple as a 5-minute task where you do have to go through a bunch of different files, find a particular document, screen through that document, find that one sentence that you need for that, you know, that little bit of information. That could take 10 minutes. And it's not unfair to say that that might happen 15 times a day.
Yeah. If anyone
So there's
works in the
2 hours
NDIS,
worth
right?
of your day gone.
Yeah, exactly. For an NDIS
2.5,
support provider,
that's
right?
math.
Yeah, you know what your filing system looks like. Let's be honest. Like, we have so many folders, many folders that need to be there, obviously, compliance purposes, documents, things like that. But there are like 50 folders, right, in one section.
Yeah.
To have that all there, but then we can say, hey, chat, please give me this document. Please get this document ready for me. It's there. Okay, perfect. Now I can print it out, go have a coffee with the participant, have a chat with them, see how they're going with their supports, so on and so forth, you know.
And that's really important too. Yeah, I can imagine some people would hear that like, oh, you're going to go get a coffee with a participant. Like that's what work are you actually doing?
Yeah.
And I think it's a valid.
Oh, definitely.
complaint. If you aren't within a service and you don't experience that day to day, those little interactions, even like I said, we said if we did that 15 times a day, going through the files and, you know, it takes 10 minutes at a time, you're looking for a particular sentence, there's 2.5 hours of your day gone.
Oh,
that 2.5 hours of your day is then spent making those phone calls to participants, checking in on them. And the reason we check in on them is to see if they're okay with the support they're receiving, if they're happy, if they'd like to do more, if there's anything they aren't, you know, maybe they're nervous to ask a particular worker about something. We can be that bridge for them.
Even feedback
on particular workers,
right?
Being able to suitably find suitable workers for that participant to make sure that they're receiving
the supports that they need.
Yeah, the right supports they need.
Yeah, the right supports. Yeah,
one support worker may not be great for a particular participant, but would be great for another. That happens so often, and without that time to be able to talk to the participants and actually get to know them, it makes it so much harder to find that suitable worker.
Yes.
So, yes, having AI to do those little nitty gritty things, sort of, I can see how people would see that sounds a bit unnecessary almost. But that interpersonal stuff that we can do as team leaders goes a long way to ensuring participants are happy.
Yeah.
And they're not only receiving the care that they need, but they're happy with the care that they need.
That's right. And that's
is the important thing at the end of the day.
That's the most, it's person-centered. It's tailored to what they want. And how are we going to do that if a robot is going to be talking or not even getting information from a participant?
Yep,
you know,
100%.
we've got that. We understand, you know.
Yep.
So the last thing we wanted to, or one of the last things that we wanted to kind of unpack is some hate comments.
Yep.
People are very trigger happy when it comes to comments on social media.
Yeah, yep.
What we like to call keyboard warriors. You can't avoid them. They're everywhere. You know what? Good on you. Good on you for having that confidence. But obviously, like I said, NDIS, unregistered, controversial. We have a TikTok account and we use that platform to educate people on the NDIS and what it's like for a support provider and for a participant, and also what it's like to be a support worker for Dreammaker as well. Like our TikTok is very broad and we have had the pleasure of having a couple of hate comments that I think we kind of want to.
They're going to happen. You can't avoid them.
Yeah, and it's fine. That's fine.
That's you know, it is what it is. Like we've got a platform that we use to help educate, to help market ourselves, all those good things, and it's not going to always be for everyone. So,
but we want those hate comments because then we're able to kind of educate. Right?
100%.
We're able to give information on what, and they feel this way because of, and this just goes to show what is being marketed out there, right?
100%,
like what is being said about the NDIS, and I don't blame these people for feeling this way.
No, not at all. Look,
in a way,
everyone's entitled to their opinion, whether it's justified or not. That's an opinion-based thing as well. So, look, let's get into them.
You want to read the first one, Clayton?
Let's have a look. I actually did go through and pick quite a few of my favourites.
Yeah, we'll probably show them for you guys somewhere around this region. I don't know where. Here. Maybe over my forehead.
Right
yeah. So.
All right. So the first one that I liked was NDIS, and the usual suspects are Australia's biggest scam. I don't necessarily hate that comment. I don't hate the hate comment, right?
Let's give them feedback. Let's give them context as to what the actual TikTok was about, because Clayton, you starred in this.
I did. Yes.
So what was the context of that video?
If I'm being honest with you, Jacinta, I don't remember. So
it was about sleepover rates for. I think it was sleepover rates for support staff.
Yes, there were changes. There was changes to the sleepover. Yes, definitely. So yeah, we essentially created a video just to put up on our TikTok to let anyone who viewed it know that there are these changes coming and what both participants should expect and what support workers are entitled to as well. Which is what led to the comment that I just said previously. NDIS and the usual suspects are Australia's biggest scam. So I can see why the public or why people who aren't involved in the NDIS see it being a scam. There's a lot of bad press out there at the moment.
Yeah, there is.
There is. And it is all around, the majority of it is around funding, finances, and how much is being poured into the NDIS, how much the NDIS are trying to reduce their current costs. So I can see why the public is seeing it as a scam. You see a news article every day or every other day about a service provider rorting the NDIS, over charging for the service they provide. Or, you know, this may just be us because we're in the sector, but I hear stories all the time about underutilization of funding, overutilization, and then just from the NDIS themselves not funding something enough or overfunding. So there's a lot of angles you can sort of take with this sort of comment, but I think overall the work that the NDIS does, like we work with people every day without the NDIS. I would say the vast majority would be in a pretty poor place. This is just from my caseload or from the caseload that we have within our organisation. I can see the positive impacts that it has on people day to day without the NDIS.
Honestly, but Clayton, for a provider, if you are an NDIS provider, everyone knows you're not in it for money. Okay, it's not about the money. Okay, because if you look at the overheads for a provider, about 60% of that is being paid to the support worker. So it's not about money, right? So, and that kind of leads on to the next comment that I wanted to say. They pay shit money for sleepovers. What's the point of a sleepover overall? Okay. So there we go. Right. It's like a mixed bag. Okay. With sleepovers, there's a flat rate just to educate people. And that's really all that it should be. Majority of the work that you're doing is active, right? Active hours. You essentially are there supporting the participant while they are awake. Okay. So the fact that this person has said they pay shit money for sleepovers, what's the point of a sleepover overall? The point is that you're supporting a participant that has needs.
I think
what is like you've come to a support with the intention to support a participant that requires your help. Okay. So for you to question why you get paid shit money while you're asleep is diabolical to me personally. I'm talking from experience though, because I was a support worker. I've done many sleepovers before. I've also done actives and I've done sleep shifts. And anyone that's a support worker, you should not really be getting into support work for money purposes. It takes a special kind of person to be a support worker. You can't just get in it thinking, hey, I'm going to make money. No. And let me tell you, the NDIS will filter you out really quick. You will not last as a support worker if you're in it for money, okay?
Yeah.
So I just want to make that clear because
it's
Ola.hj, do not become a support worker.
It's one of those funny things, right?
Simple.
Where it's so for a bit of context, right? A support worker who's on an active overnight does get paid a pretty high hourly rate. You're going to be awake all night. You're going to be with participants, and the reason that you're active is very likely because that participant is expected to be active, awake at night as well. During these sleepover supports, as Jacinta said, there was a flat rate that support workers get paid. You are only being paid that flat rate for the hours that you are sleeping. And usually you get given 8 hours for your sleep period, right? So the way that I look at it is you're being paid to sleep, and yes, you're not in your own home. Yes, you're a little bit uncomfortable if, let's say, it's your first shift with this participant, or you've not had a chance to do an overnight with that participant previously. Yes, all those things can be a bit confronting. However, we are being paid to sleep.
Exactly. Let's remember that for a second.
If you
are asleep.
That's it. And if for whatever reason you have to become active, let's say, for example, your participant wakes you up because they need to go to the bathroom, they're physically unable and they need assistance to go to the bathroom. For the hours that you are awake, you are getting paid at your hourly rate. You're not just getting that flat rate, you're getting that flat rate on top of being paid for the work that you're doing.
Can I say, imagine the backlash in the comments if support workers started getting paid while they're asleep by the hour.
That leads us back to the whole
overfunding
aspect of things. Like, how much would that cost the NDIS and then in turn the taxpayer if every single time that a support worker slept at a participant's house, they were paid an overnight active rate, which it is a really, really good rate. I understand why workers would want those rates.
It is a good rate.
It is fantastic.
It's a good rate.
But if the idea right now is for the NDIS to reduce the amount of spending, then upping that overnight rate or paying an hourly overnight, you're paying someone for an overnight at their hourly rate would pretty much go against what the NDIS themselves are trying to avoid right now, which is overspending and then not being able to run the NDIS, I suppose. But like I said, this person who's left the comment may not know this stuff, and
that's why we're here. Really,
that's it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've done my overnights before. I've done them active. I've done them inactive, so a sleep shift, and it is unfortunate sometimes for support workers because I believe if you want to get into support work, you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You're meeting new people weekly. You're in environments where you're not familiar with. And I find good support workers can walk into new environments and whether they're faking it or not, they can present like they're comfortable. That puts the participant at ease very often. They see a worker's comfortable, they become comfortable, and that just is what it is in regards to what we provide. So,
and that's exactly right. Like support workers, it's all about adaptability. And we could go on a tangent about this as well, which I'm sure this is a great topic that we could talk about in the next episode. But being a support worker is not for anybody. It takes a special kind of person to be a support worker. And as I said before, if you are not in it for the right reasons, where your true passion is to help people, you will be filtered out very quickly, not just by compliance, not just for compliance purposes, but because you also won't last if you're in it for money or other things. The real purpose of a support worker is they do need to be person-centered, passionate, and they want to help because you
That's
are going to be
yeah.
tested. You're going to come across certain things that will test you because it is tiring.
It's tiring.
Mentally
it's
exhausting.
Draining. It's burnout happens so often
Very often
for support workers. Burnout.
How often do you offer like a break to support workers and say, hey, if you're feeling burnt out or you're feeling exhausted, let me know. Like that is a very common thing for like team leaders to support workers kind of thing.
Definitely. Like, we do manage quite a few teams individually as team leaders within Dreammaker, and a lot of workers are across multiple teams doing shifts that are with complex participants multiple days a week, and it is so easy to burn out.
Yeah. Oh.
It's if you're doing these overnights where, let's say, for example, you are doing an inactive overnight where you're sleeping on shift, but there's constant escalations with this participant throughout the night. You're walking into a shift expecting to go to bed. You've been rostered as if you're expected to go to bed. And then you'll end up being up all night. That can knock you around.
Oh, yeah. For the next day as well. Like
Yeah, 100%. And some workers do those sort of shifts 3 times a week. It is very, very draining. And we have participants with very, very complex needs. And like I said, if you are in it for the money, it's you're not going to last. It's
I don't know about you, Clayton, but back in my support days or my youth work days, I was stuck at a house for 3 days because they couldn't find a cover.
Yeah.
So
that's
I was stuck there. And that's what I'm saying. It's unexpected. You don't know what goes on in support work life if you haven't been in it. But that's what I'm saying. You can't be in it if you're not passionate, right?
Well, that's it. Yeah. Like
it's one of those.
You want to be a support worker. You've got to prioritize your work and you've got to look at it as a career. I understand a lot of people get into it, whilst they're at university, whilst they're finishing schooling, because they're in the community services or health sector, and it's a great way to learn, and that's awesome. And if that's what the reason why you're in support work, to learn and educate, that's awesome. But if you're looking at becoming a support worker purely for financial gain, it's not going to benefit you long term. The financial benefit from being a support worker, I don't think outweighs the burnout and the complex behaviors you're going to deal with, and just the you could have 6 days back to back of really fantastic smooth supports, but you're interacting at all times. You're not focusing on yourself. You're focusing on participants. But
people will scream out scam, scam, scam. But they don't realize, like, even for us, we sometimes are supporting participants with them not having any funding. Like, we have actually supported 24/7 participants when they don't have funding because the system failed them, essentially.
Yeah.
So not every company is a scam. I mean, like the fact that people can throw that around so easily, it's like we have literally done supports for free. And these are big block supports, 24/7 around the clock supports where, like I said, we have the system has failed these poor participants and they are left with, if we weren't there, they'd have nobody. Okay. They might even be on the street. Like, and I'm so passionate and very fierce about it because yes, I'm not a support coordinator, but you feel like you know them that well that you want to advocate for them,
100%.
And when they come to these plan meetings, it's like, how could you? You know that this person is unable to utilize the bathroom by themselves and you won't even give them funding for consumables, like so that they can get a bidet even. Like, it just irritates me so much because it's like we are so invested in these people's lives because we support them every day. And it's like, how can you not see that there is such an imbalance? Like, how have you given, say, Joe Blow, another participant, like 8 hours of support a day when they've got a full-time job, they go to work, they do what they need to do for a day, they're completely independent, but then you can't even give poor Susie Brown, we'll say, funding for overnight supports where she is a actual risk to herself of trip hazards. She could choke, asphyxiate. I can never say it, Clayton. Can you fix it? asphyxia, asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation. There we go.
That's
there we
the
go.
one.
Yep, there we go.
Asphyxiation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At night. And they can't even get overnight support. Like that is diabolical. But it is what it is.
It's one of those things where I
want to bring up one comment. Sorry, I just
Oh, no,
can't.
go ahead. We spent a lot of time on this comment. Yeah.
And this guy is Happy Bastos. No idea who you are. But this one just really heated me up. Immigrants advising on NDIS. One of the biggest things wrong with NDIS. Excuse me, firstly, how dare you? Like, who are you to say something like that? Immigrants. Sorry, but can I just also add that Australia...
Completely irrelevant to the point that you're trying to make to
like
begin
makes
with.
no sense. You're crap for being a racist, firstly. Secondly, Australia is the most versatile... what's that word I'm trying to use?
Melting pot, multicultural.
No, multicultural, that's the one. We're the most multi-diverse country.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who you're talking about when it comes to saying... immigrants advising on NDIS, one of the biggest things wrong with the NDIS. Can I just say, some of the immigrants that we have also employed are the hardest, most passionate, lovely type of support workers or office staff or whatever that we've had. Like, let's not take away from them as well. Like, I think you're just butthurt about something. I don't know what, Happy Bastos, but... You need to check yourself. So
the word immigrants upsets me, and it does because we don't even know the majority of the time whether our support workers or stakeholders, allied health, whoever, if they are migrants or immigrants. We don't know this sort of stuff.
Matter? Like
that's surely got to come from a place of bad experiences with a particular group of people.
Who knows?
And then we're throwing a blanket over. I'm going to assume again, throw a blanket over everyone who may look or sound similar to the people that you've had bad experiences with. We've got so many support workers within our organisation. We work with so much allied health, so many support coordinators who come from different walks of life. Some of them may be immigrants. Some of them may be
and not to mention,
first-generation Australians.
Some of our participants are immigrants as well. They're now citizens of Australia and they require the NDIS. Who are you to judge, Like
the big part of this is that they've seen a video that we've uploaded, and for the lack of a better word, seen some coloured people that we work with that we're friends with.
Well, actually, one of them especially is our service manager who's taught me everything that I know practically about the NDIS, which is wild.
So you see a person of colour and you go, "This is what's wrong with the NDIS."
What about the comment of them saying, what is it? I need to find this.
Let's have a look.
Try not to read and speak from your mind. Okay.
Honestly, I don't get that one.
Has anyone ever been in front of a camera like that's watching right now? Because let me tell you, doing this podcast is great for me because it's more of an open conversation. But the moment you've got to do content and there's a camera in front of you, you can try to memorize like even a 2-line sentence, right? That moment that camera is up there, like it's gone. And when you're trying to deliver important information so that we're avoiding hate, right, as well, you freeze and you can't.
You do.
How many takes, literally, when I'm doing content, it takes me about maybe, and I can get Ramina, our marketing manager, our coordinator to agree with this. It takes me about 10 takes for one line. Like, it's really bad. I'm trying to get better on it, but at the same time, we've got a job to do. Like we're not actors that can remember scripts. Like
that's it. Like it's one of those.
We're doing this in between our jobs. Like
we're trying to find time to do the promotion and marketing aspect of things, and also the education aspect of things. Whether that be during office hours, we do it after office hours. We stay back unpaid. Like these things do happen because we do want to get this stuff out. And we do want to be involved, and we do want to help essentially. So. I look at this comment and with how much nonsense there is out and about there where there's people just reading scripts and, it sometimes feels like people are the robots and they're just reading. So I get that. Would be very easy for us to get on a video and just word vomit and blurt everything we want to say out, and I'm sure some people would like that. I don't know if a lot of people will. If that was just a short form video where I'll just waffle to you for 2 minutes, but that's not going to achieve what the purpose of the video was.
No.
So I understand where you're coming from. It'd be so much nicer for someone who's in the field, in the sector.
Like you could hire an actor. You could hire an actor for it. You could do it, right? But what's the point? Like we do this every day. We're passionate about these things. We're passionate about these topics. We want to share that information. Okay, we're not going up for a Grammy, right? Like who cares?
Particularly
it's information.
For singing, but
it's and I'm pretty sure our colleague Lara, she actually did a what is it? She did a flip or something. She did a cartwheel. So she's trying to be a little bit entertaining, right? She's trying her best. Like
I just think this person's missed the point of the video. The target that we were trying to hit, this person wasn't holding up. And that's okay.
This is wild. People will always have something to say, and that's okay. It's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinions. It is what it is. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. If you have any valuable feedback for us or comments, please feel free to share it down below, and we can address those in our next episode. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Can't wait to see you next time.
See ya.